There was nothing else at all in the whole world but football.
Hello and welcome to the Triple F for another episode of the Magic of, where this week we'll be looking at the wonderful football club FC Groningen. Before I start, you might be wondering why I'm pronouncing it like Groningen instead of Groningen, but that's because I live out here and I'd probably get slapped for saying Groningen. It might get a bit annoying, but as long as I refrain from going into full Joël Baton or Steve McLaren mode, I think we'll be fine. Seeing as I moved to the province of Groningen about a year ago and I've been visiting and become accustomed to the city for about the last 3 or 4 years, I couldn't avoid covering FC Groningen. So without further ado, this is the Magic of FC Groningen. The province of Groningen is the most northern province of the Netherlands. The capital and largest city of the province is the city of Groningen. The most famous landmarks within the city are the Martini-toren, a church steeple of the Martini-kerk built in the 13th century, the Gas-Unie head office, aka the Apenrots, which means monkey rock, go figure, Groningen Museum, Rijksuniversiteit Groningen, aka de Rug, or the Rug, which also translates as the back, Groningen Forum, a modern cultural centre which houses a library, cinema and museums, de Noorderplantsoen, an urban public park which also doubles up as a music and arts venue, the Drie Gezusters traditional pub, and the Groningen railway station. Outside of the city, the province is home to beautiful villages such as Winsum, voted the prettiest village of all Netherlands last year. The medieval town of Appingedam is famous for its hanging kitchens over the central canal. Pieterburen has its very own seal rescue centre, and Boertange, the historic star-shaped battle fort. And of course, my hometown of Nieuwolde, which is famous for me, football superstar Simon Price. Groningen was a member of the Hanseatic League from 1282 until 1669. The Hanseatic League was a merchants' collaboration made up of Germany, Scandinavia, England, Poland, the Baltics, Russia and of course the Netherlands. Groningen, along with the rest of the Netherlands, was besieged from Spanish rule by Prince Maurice of Orange in 1594. The liberation of Groningen is celebrated every August the 28th to commemorate when General Karl von Rabenhaupt freed the city of Bommenbren's domination in 1672. Canadian divisions fought in the Battle of Groningen and Delfzijl during World War II. The first female Dutch doctor, Aletta Jacobs, graduated from the University of Groningen in 1878. And to add to all of that incredible history, football superstar Simon Price moved to the province of Groningen in the year 2020!
Get off! I want my money back!
The origins of football in Groningen date all the way back to 1887, when the local gymnasium students established the cricket and football club Be Quick. The second football team within the city was formed as Velocitas 1897. Velocitas was considered the working class outfit, where Be Quick was viewed as more of an elitist operation. GVAV, Groningen Voetbal en Atletiek Vereniging, or GVAV, Groningen Football and Athletics Association, was established in 1915. And merged with the athletics club Rapiditas in 1917, officially known as GVAV Rapiditas, although most refer to it as just GVAV. By the end of the late 1950s, the smaller clubs in Groningen, Be Quick, Velocitas and Oosterparkers, pulled out of professional football, leaving GVAV as the only professional football team in the city. Throughout the 60s, GVAV struggled with serious financial, ownership and technical issues. A coalition of GVAV, the municipality of Groningen and an organisation representing local businesses was formed to help keep the club in professional existence. In 1970, disaster struck when GVAV found themselves relegated from the Eredivisie. In order to clear debt and essentially remain in professional football, GVAV had to cut ties from the club and allow proposals from local amateur clubs, the municipality and other local businesses to form a football club more befitting of the city and province of Groningen. In June of 1971, FC Groningen was officially established. Thanks to GVAV managing promotion the previous season, FC Groningen started life in the Eredivisie, dropping the blue, white and red associated with GVAV, favouring the new green and white municipality colours. FC Groningen's debut season was unfortunately marred by tragedy. GVAV goalkeeper Tony van Leeuwen died in a car crash on his way home from receiving the Best Player in the Netherlands award for the 1970-71 season. Although the club spent the majority of the 70s in the second tier of Dutch football, foundations of their future success were being laid. In 1975, they established their youth academy, and Theo Verlangen, the man to eventually get them back into the Eredivisie, was appointed manager in 1977. The 80s was arguably FC Groningen's finest period. They eliminated Atletico Madrid in their European debut in the 1983-84 UEFA Cup and put up a valiant fight against Inter Milan, losing 5-3 on aggregate. They competed in Europe again in 86, 88 and 89. A lot of that success is attributed to players such as brothers Ronald and Erwin Koeman, Peter Houtman and Adrie van Tichelen. 1984 saw the arrival of Johan Neeskens, however he arrived at the club too old to make any lasting impression. 1984 also saw the birth of a future legend, the Englishman Simon Price, who would grace Dutch soils with his incredible... Stop it! The 1990-91 season saw one of their finest campaigns with the deadly strike partnership of Henny Meyer and Milko Turovsky, but the lack of squad depth saw them finish third that season behind PSV and Ajax. Although the 90s seemed promising early on, they finished in the bottom half of the Eredivisie from 93 to 98, in which the last year they suffered relegation to the second tier. After their struggles on the pitch, FC Groningen hired in Ron Jans, and his successful 8-year stint saw them climb out of the doldrums. A lot of this was thanks to great talents such as Eric Nevland, Bruno Silva, Marcus Berg, Andreas Gronkvist, youngster Luis Suarez and a brief spell from academy prospect Arjen Robben. During this spell, the Oosterpark was replaced by the more modern Euroborg in 2005. 2015 saw the club win their first ever major trophy when they defeated PSV Zwolle 2-0 to claim the KNVB Cup. Currently, FC Groningen are doing relatively well, sitting 6th in the table. Under new manager and former player Danny Buis, the Pride of the North are showing a solid grit and determination in their performances by grinding out decent results. It's just a shame that most of those performances are in front of empty seats, especially when Golden Boy Arjen Robben made his return to the club from retirement last year. Just imagine the noise when welcomed back to the Euroborg. Right guys, now for the chat with season ticket holder Sam van der Say to find out about some of his experiences in the Euroborg, who his favourite players are, what his favourite goals are, and his thoughts on the current status of the club. If you could more or less just sort of walk me through what a day at the... Is it called the Euroborg? Is that still kind of what you refer to it
I
as?
think officially it's now called the Hitachi Mobility Stadium. It's like a lease car company, but I think almost every supporter still calls it the Euroborg.
Yeah.
So, yeah, on a typical day, like I've had my season ticket since I think I was 18, so for like 12, 13 years now. And the group of friends has grown over time, and then when the seasons were bad, or well, now with COVID, I don't know who's gonna still have their ticket next year. I think most of them do, but you never know. But like normally we're a group of like, well, anywhere between 5 and 10 friends. I think there's 5 or 6 that go literally every match, and then a couple who have work in the weekends every now and again. And then a typical day, we meet up an hour before the match. If it's an evening match, sometimes earlier. Go for a drink, maybe 2, head to the stadium, and obviously some more drinks. We always have the same spot we stand at. For some silly reason, it developed in a way that we're not really at the seats that our tickets show. We always stand on the stairway down.
Yeah.
So officially, we're not allowed to stand in the stands, but on the North Curve in the Euroborg. They actually do.
Yeah.
So we stand, and our spot that we always go to is sort of near the bottom of the stairs. We always stand in the same spot. It's been like that for years. So you get to know the people that stand there as well. And then after the match, regardless if we win or lose, we always go for a drink. Obviously, sometimes some people are so bummed out if it's a bad match that they head home. And out of the 8 or so friends we're with, 4 or 5 go for drinks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always great fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it's always better when you guys win. Those drinks just taste a lot better.
Or if we lose horribly, then the drink tastes damn well as well.
Like medicine.
Matches, it's definitely medicine sometimes. We've had seasons where you had such a good season start, and then the second season half is so terrible that after every match you're just like, you're almost halfway through the match, you're almost excited for when you can go to the bar afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's part of the type of club Groningen is. We're not expecting them to win each match, and you still have to enjoy your time there. So
yeah,
better always make the best of it.
So kind of like drinking your sorrows away then.
Yeah. And also depending on what you expect, like having too high expectations for some matches just doesn't work.
No.
Like if the players on the field play a crap match and they don't play with the fire and passion that you want to see them play with, then I can be really bummed out if we lose, regardless of the team you lose against.
Yeah.
But if it's a good match and you lose because the other team outclasses you, then you better enjoy the drinks, enjoy your friends and the company.
Yeah.
You know,
that's cool.
Sing some songs in the stadium, shout at the referee if he makes a mistake, and have fun.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to enjoy what you can. Are you fairly close to the ultras where you are?
Yeah, actually, where we stand. With Groningen, you have a couple of groups within the supporters, I guess, like older groups that have always existed, and the newer groups, and also the ultras over the years have refound themselves, taken new names, new leadership within their groups, I guess. I don't exactly know how these things work. But the stairs we're standing on is actually a funny place because it's like right smack bang in the middle of where all the active groups are. Yeah. So right above us is the ultras. In front of us is the old firm, so to say, sort of to the front of us. So yeah, we're with the group of friends I'm with. We're always smack bang in the middle of all the excitement. That's always fun.
Good seats to have, because the reason I ask that is because in England, although a lot of the games, they can be lively, there can be a lot of atmosphere, but we don't have that sort of ultra culture that you see in other parts of Europe. So it's always something that's kind of fascinated me, really. It's always something that I'd like to see sort of firsthand.
It's actually like I think that's the same with every club. There's parts of the season where it's like every match is like you enter this. The Euroborg had the nickname the Green Cathedral, because basically when you enter on the inside, all the chairs are green, and especially when you see it empty. From the outside, it's an ugly thing, to be honest. Like it's gotten better now that there's buildings in the surrounding. But when it got built, it's like this block of cement in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And now it's gotten better, but like the inside, it was always, there was a lot of clubs, even like the bigger ones like Ajax or PSV, they would fear playing in the Euroborg because there was always this atmosphere. It's like and I'm not even going to say it's always the loudest, right? But on average, there's the team, the supporters are always behind the team, or at least most of the time. And then that creates this, like you said, the ultra culture, but also they manage to. I think it's a relatively big group. I'm not that aware of what is big and what's not, but it's a relatively big ultra group we have nowadays in Groningen, and then that drags the rest of the stadium with in the general vibe. So you just get the noise and it starts boiling and all that. Yeah,
that sounds cool, because I think I saw a couple of clips on YouTube where these ultras were sort of setting fires in the stands. It's like you would never get that. I'm an Arsenal fan, and I've been to a lot of matches. There was one match that I've been to, and I was told to sit down, and I was literally standing right at the back. My back was against the wall. I was at the highest seat in the whole of the stadium, and they told me to sit down, and I was thinking like, this is not the atmosphere that you want at a football game. And then you sort of see what happens at FC Groningen, and it's like, oh man, that's what I want to see when I go to a football game.
The rules have gotten stricter, like, and I don't even think that's because of Groningen, but because of European football culture and the UEFA and FIFA being strict on those rules. Like, for instance, when you play a European football match and fireworks is lit, the club gets fines that are so high. Like smaller clubs like Groningen, that's really hard to afford. And it not always. It also, obviously, I love that type of culture, and I love when there's fireworks and all the stuff. But like sometimes it has to be done correctly. So
yeah,
I'd much rather have it where they sort of semi allow it, or where the guys doing it are in contact with the club to make them aware of that it's going to be happening, even though it's not allowed, and they have to do it with masks on to not get detecting it, get fired. But I've seen it in the past a couple of times where it creates more stress with people than it creates the right kind of atmosphere.
Right.
Not for me so much, but I've seen people sort of panic when there's the flares being lit under under a banner, and the smoke gets really thick, and people start to be a bit panicky. Yeah, it happens. Yeah. To me, it doesn't matter that much, but
no.
Like, if the rules wouldn't have been as strict as they are, it doesn't have to be this sort of secrecy, and it makes it exciting. Like, if it was all allowed, it would be every match, and the fun would be gone as well.
Yeah.
But there must be some sort of middle ground. Like, you get 10-year stadium ban for lighting a flare. That's over exaggerating it. You know, some clubs, when you're the one lighting the flare, if they catch you, you can get a fine up to like 10,000 euros, and the 10-year ban. It's just a little firework, 10,000 euros. It doesn't stand in comparison.
No.
Like, if you ban me for a year, that's enough for me not to do it. Like, but yeah, it's a bit unrealistic on how heavy it's punished for what it's worth.
Most sort of specifically Arsenal, I suppose it's the sort of go-to reference that I'll go to. But with Arsenal, a lot of these games are sanitized. A lot of these games are sort of, just more or less family friendly. Whereas in Germany's the complete opposite. They do have the balance right. They do have the sort of the atmosphere correct, in a sense that, yes, okay, you're allowed to go wild, and there's a lot of emphasis on the ultras and the fans generating this great kind of atmosphere in the stadium, but they do it in a way that's not pissing everybody off, and it's not sort of crossing the line, essentially. I think that's the right way to do it. And I think terraces as well, being able to stand up in the stadium, that goes a long way as well.
The thing is, like, in the Netherlands, you're not allowed to have fully standing terraces. Like, there's a couple of clubs who have it where you have these railings, so there's no actual seats, but they have these railings that on every row where they have to stand behind, not so that you can't have these waves of people rushing forward, which in the past has caused a lot of injuries and stuff. But yeah, I think Germany is a very good example, but also I don't think in the Netherlands in general a lot goes wrong, because normally what part of the stadium you go to. The ultras always have their own part of the stadium where they hang. The people attracted to that kind of vibe, they try to sit as close to that as possible. And families with kids normally don't. You always have these exceptions, like at a cup match or something, where seasonal ticket holders, they just buy a ticket on the wrong spot, basically.
Yeah.
And they just want to sit on the seat they bought. And we've had it in the past where people actually started bitching at us. We standing at our own spot for 10 years, people asking us to sit down because they wanted to see the match. And we're like, yes, very sorry, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Then luckily in the Euroborg, they have this thing where the ultras are and where me and my friends sit. It's free placement. So you get a ticket, let's say in the part B of the stadium. You can sit from B till I think G or something, or H. It's free placement in the bottom ring. So whether you have your ticket on B row 3 or in F row 6, it doesn't matter. It's free placement in those rows. So when you have these people who for the first time in years go to a match and they tell you like, oh, you're sitting on my seats. Luckily, we can always explain like, well, in this part of the stadium, it doesn't work like that. You know, if you want to sit down, I would go to part B, which is a bit more where people sit down a little bit more, and you can often explain it, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And therefore, that culture works. Where probably indeed in England also, I don't know how it is at Arsenal, but I've heard seasonal ticket prices being so insanely high
it's ridiculous.
that it kind of forces out like for instance the ultras at Groningen. It's a lot of young boys. You know, you can't expect them all to afford like 1,500 euros for a season ticket. Funny thing is, I didn't really grow up watching Groningen much. So I've always had the interest in it when I heard about Groningen from friends and stuff, because I'm from the city. I grew up here. So there was always this interest, and if they were doing well, you would feel sort of proud. But actually never really went to matches until I was about 17, 18. And then from the first moment I went to a match, I think within 3 weeks, I bought my season ticket and never stopped going. And I really randomly went with a friend that just said, like, I have a ticket left over. You want to come? I'm like, yeah. I never really do that, but yeah, it sounds fun. And went to the match. And for the first few years, I got sucked into it so heavily. I went to every away game, every home game. Like I literally went to everything I could. That's gone now. Like I don't have the time to go to every away game. We try with our group of friends to go to like 2 or 3 a year at least. Sometimes a bit more. Sometimes it remains with the 2 or 3. And that was a great time. Like being 18, you don't have much to do in the weekends. So no. I'd go when I was like 19, 20. I'd go drinking on Saturday night, roll out of the clubs at 6 a.m, and the away bus was leaving at 9 a.m. So I'd literally take a 2-hour nap, brush my teeth, go into the bus, and like the stewards would say, "Jesus, dude, you just smell like Bacardi." Like 2 hours later, you're in a stadium. You sneak the little bottle of Coke in with Bacardi in it. They always checked the lid if it was still, because you weren't allowed to take your own drinks unless there was it. But we had tricks to put Bacardi in there. And you were just in the bus again. That was hilarious. That was a good amount of fun. I remember actually that first match that I went to, or one of the first. It was with that same friend at least. So it must have been. It was the first year of the Euroborg actually, and there was this man in the away section. The tickets that we had were next to the away section. There was this man in the away section that kept on like banging the window and stuff, but out of like a sort of not aggressively towards us, but just like he was so into the match. Yeah. And at some point they scored, I believe, and he started going wild. And in this section where we were, it was mostly families, and this friend of mine was really active supporter since he was like 6 years old. And he took me with him instead of his younger brother, and we were sitting there. And at some point, Groningen scored, so we ran up to that dude and also banged the window, and also not meant in a provocative way, no, but just like the same excitement he had banging it, we went back. Yeah. And where normally that often you know creates sort of an aggressive vibe, or you get some cursing back and forth, which I've had more times than I can count, and that's sometimes even that is a bit of fun and a bit of banter. But in this case, the guy actually applauded us, like being in this family area, and there's suddenly two dudes jumping up when it scored and also going wild, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, you guys are cool." That was actually my first vivid memory of the probably first or second match I went to.
That's cool, man. That's cool. I think like you don't have to explain when it comes to that sort of tribalism, that kind of energy that's brought out of fans. Because I have it the same as well. I'm pretty mild mannered. I wouldn't say quiet, but I'm pretty chilled most of the time. But when I watch a football game, I go nuts. I go crazy. You can't control yourself. And like you say, it's not an aggressive kind of violent energy. It's more just you're just amped
It's
for the
pretty a
game.
bit of everything. Like I can get that way, like not literally violent, but like I can get on that edge of being like, oh, if I could punch someone now, like when things are either really bad or when, when you have when the other team is, especially when it's the away section and they're chanting something towards you and you can actually hear it. So then they have to be quite loud, especially in Euroborg, the away section from where we stand, the other side of the stadium. So if you can hear them and you hear they're chanting something towards you, you get that vibe of, all right, we have to get back at them now.
Yeah.
Which is not always easy if you're, for instance, 3-0 behind. But yeah,
Yeah.
and that's over. But I get all the vibe. Like I've holes in the holes in the wall here from it's from years ago. But like watching a match and out of pure passion smacking a bottle.
Yeah.
And then the bottle hit the wall and actually punched a hole through it.
When you're in the middle of it, you don't question it. You think, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then like the next day, you think, oh, why did I do that?
So, 5 minutes later, most of the time. 5 minutes later, I'm like, well, no, that was my beer gone and a hole in the wall. That's 2 times. It's 2 bad things in a row.
Oh man, that's football for you. That's football.
Yeah, definitely.
Your top 5 favorite FC Groningen players?
So I had to think about this one for a bit because in the years that I've gone to Groningen, we've had some memorable strikers like Matafs and Marcus Berg, and there's been a couple. But for some reason, the players that I always enjoyed seeing the most was defenders that had sort of a passion for the club and that would sometimes like walk up to our audience and like sweep them up, like, come on guys, stay behind the players.
Yeah.
And I don't have a literal top 5. Well, always in my top 5, even before this year, would have been Arjen Robben.
Yeah.
And not even for while he played at the club, because that was actually a short while. But like everyone here in Groningen knows that if he had a weekend off at Bayern, he would be in Groningen watching the football.
Yeah.
So he's a guy of the city, man of the club.
Yeah.
That he came back this year just showed how much his passion for the club and the region and the city is, because he didn't do it like for motives of trying to make Groningen champions or anything, because that's not realistic. He even from the start said, I don't even know if I'll be able to play, but we'll hope for the best.
Yeah.
He just did it for the club, and that probably, if I have to give it someone a number 1 spot, that will be him for that reason.
Yeah.
Like he would be in the top 5 before as probably the only sort of striker or attacking player. But like a couple of my favorite players are like Andreas Grankvist, who was like massively important in the growth of FC Groningen from being like a relatively small club who would be lucky if they ended like 10th or something. And then the years that he played here, we would consistently play the playoffs for European football.
Yeah.
And a couple of other defenders like Stenman, who played the left back. Before that, we had Gibril Sanko, which was a player both hated and loved, because he would do these crazy things. He would make the opponent's team strikers completely crazy, because he would be the guy holding the ball under his foot until the striker was almost in range of it, and then knock it back to the goalie and stuff like that. And it has gone wrong in the past, where he was being that annoying dick to a striker and actually messed up, and they scored a goal against us, and then you hated the guy. But thinking back, like, he made an impression, so that's why he would have a top 5 spot for me. And then there are some players like Michael Kieftenbelt, who actually went to England later. That was a player I never really appreciated as much when he played here, but I've watched back, for instance, the match when we won the cup here in a couple of years ago, or like 7 years ago it is now. When we won the cup, he was majorly important that season. He was just a midfielder that was really good at dividing the field. So players like that. Like, no, I don't think my favorite players are often the ones that score the most goals or are the most flamboyant players, but like players who are down to earth, do their thing, are important to the club, and that show a bit of passion towards the club. Same for now, our goalie now, but it's a shame he's going away, but I understand that he wants to have an adventure in a foreign country. He wants to have that, but he has been so important to the club the past years, and also always been really down to earth, always willing to talk to the supporters, always. So yeah, he's a guy that from the players now, besides Robin, would be possibly in that top 5 or close to it.
What's your kind of thoughts on Strand Larson? Because for me, he looks impressive. He looks like a real player, and it's a shame in the sense that he's not sort of playing during a time where the stadium's full, because he seems like a type of player that get the fans excited.
Not only that, I think he'll be good with having excited fans behind the goal, because from what I've seen in interviews and like the way he is on social media and stuff, he seems like a really relaxed dude, but that really loves the passion within the game of football, be it on the field or, support on the side. Like there is players sometimes that probably play better in an empty stadium because they can focus fully on the football. They get distracted or something. I think he'd actually be doing well, especially in the Euroborg with the full support behind him. Like that's the vibe I get from him. There's no way of saying because we've never really seen that, but yeah. And besides that, he's like, when he was just attracted to the club, I was like, that's probably going to be the thing Groningen always does. They get like boys from Scandinavia, young boys, diamonds in the rough, and like half of them make it, the other half play here for a season and they go either back or to another club. But actually from day one, he's kind of surprised me. Like not even in like having a very fast dribble, not in one specific field, but he's like the kind of striker so far, I mean, it's still early to say, that just knows where to be at the right time, which is that rare striker ability. Sometimes you have the strikers that just make a lot of goals because they're super fast or they have a very good free kick or whatnot. He's there when he has to be there and knocks him in. Yeah. And so far, so good. I mean,
yeah. I
the
think
fear always is that if he does this too well, he's going to be gone in a season,
Yeah, I suppose that's the problem you have, really, isn't it? I think, I mean, Arsenal are essentially that kind of team now. We've got a few players. When you're kind of that mid-table sort of team, that's where you have that problem, because as soon as your players start playing well, that's when all the sort of big dogs go sniffing around, and it can be a bit of an issue.
You have to buy the young players because the big dogs are going to buy the already established players, and then when you buy a young player that actually does well, again the big dogs come and buy him. That's what happens. We've had seasons where Ajax bought 4 or so of our players in one season. Wow. That was actually the season when Suarez, for instance, went from Groningen to Ajax. They bought 4 in one season. It was like, what you gonna do?
Yeah, well, you never know. Things might change now because of coronavirus and the way it's affected sort of transfer markets and so on. I don't think that activity is as fluid as it used to be. So maybe it changes
in the
things.
Netherlands, it's going to be a bit fucked probably, because there's only one club that really has a lot of money in the bank now, and that will remain that way, and that's Ajax, because they sort of made a lot of money from a couple of years ago when they won the Champions League, and from transfers like De Ligt and Matthijs to Juventus and De Ligt to Barcelona. Yeah, and a lot of that money they haven't spent, so they were the only ones this season to buy like an extremely expensive player. They bought Haller for like 20 million, which is insane for the Dutch competition to spend that kind of money. Yeah. So I think they'll, like money-wise, they'll have a lonely reign at the top. But obviously that doesn't say anything of what's going to happen on the field. I mean, no. Yeah. There's always surprises. Like I will never forget, and I never thought I would ever see it, but when in England, Jesus, now the name slips. Leicester City obviously won the title. That brought hope to, I think, everyone in Europe that is a smaller team. Yeah, like, I'm not expecting Groningen to ever win a not ever, but not that I will see it win a title. Like I think that's unrealistic expectations, but that every underdog ever got hopes by seeing Leicester City do what they did. Yeah,
realistically speaking, for FC Groningen, would it be more of a a target or a realistic target to set sort of European qualification? Is that more of a goal really that you guys have as a club and as fans?
Yeah, I think for Groningen, always the target should be to play. Well, obviously we have one less European spot since like last year or the year before than we used to have as the Netherlands. So it all depends a little on that. But normally the target was always to play playoffs for European football. So be within the top 8. And I think for Groningen on the long term, that should always kind of be the goal. There can be seasons where you have a really good team together and you don't sell players in the summer. You can maybe say like, we want to be 4th or 5th. We want to, compete for that like real sub top. But the goal at the start of every season, I think for Groningen should be top 8 or the left row, so top 8, top 9, and compete for European football, or at least the chance of it. And then obviously we won the cup once. That was one of the best things I've seen in my life. That's the biggest party I've ever had, I guess. You can't expect any team to win a cup often, but I think that's more realistic to ever achieve that again, because a cup can be so random. If you draw like 3 teams in a row that are quite an easy beat, and you get that cup fighter form, then you can beat anyone at some point, because it's a one match thing. Anyone can beat anyone. So maybe we'll see that happen ever again. And other than that, I've been lucky enough to go to a couple of European matches with Groningen already, and that will likely happen again someday. And that's a goal that is achievable for Groningen, and it's fun if they do.
During this season at the moment, do you think it's possible for European qualification this year?
Well, we're doing really well, but the thing with Groningen always is, when we do well, there's always this notch in the season where we're not. Although it has been really stable. Like even when we played a lesser match, or when we had a hard time scoring goals, what I've really noticed is that they managed to sort of keep it together and not fall on their face too hard. The other way around as well. When we are the better team, we never score 4 or 5 goals in a match, even though we're sometimes by far the better team in that match. So they have like this sort of stable line of winning with a 1 goal difference or losing with a 1 or 2 goal difference, which if they keep track of that, we're gonna, at the current state, if this would be the end score, then we would play playoffs for European football, and anyone within that playoffs, I think we have the chance of beating. If I would have to put my money on us playing European football next season, I would be scared to lose my money, I guess. But that's also because things can change so rapidly. It's not like we're this powerhouse this season that is unbeatable. So not even at home, because the home matches, they mean a bit less. Like there's still a little home advantage, I think, but it's a lot less. So if you lose, and in the Dutch competition now, everyone is sort of close together in the middle, like from place 4 till probably 12 is all within 10 points reach from each other. By head, I don't have the scores in front of me, but like it's really close. You lose 3 matches and the season can look completely different. So playoffs is probably realistic at this point, like playoffs for European football, but direct qualifications isn't, because I don't think we'll be in the top 5. I think top 6 to 8 is still, place 6 to 8 is still the most realistic. But you never know. Rather be negative and be surprised at the end of the season than put my hopes up too high and be bummed out.
That sounds like the typical Groningen way.
Yeah, it is. The glass is always half empty.
But obviously sort of proceedings more than I do. But from what the sort of brief glimpses of what I've seen so far, considering that your sort of PSVs and Feyenoords, they're not sort of firing on all cylinders as most people would expect. You never know, man. You never know. It gives you kind of opportunities there. So, but I'm not going to stop you doing your sort of Groningen thing and looking at things and expecting the worst, and then a better thing happens, and it's good advice to sort of take it that way.
Yeah. Sure. I think this has been like I wish we would have been in the stands more, but like it's been so far been a fun season to watch. Like the whole Eredivisie has been relatively fun to watch with everything being so close together. But with Groningen as well, like even last weekend, we the first like hour we played so much better, and then this weird thing happens where Groningen gets the opposing team, so Zwolle gets a red card, and suddenly becomes the better team. It made no sense. The players of Groningen after the match sounded pretty relaxed, like we had it under control. But me and I was watching it with two buddies, and we were sitting on the couch, and we were like, Jesus, you'll see them end in a draw, even though they were better the first hour until the opposing team got. Yeah, shit happens, but that's football, right? Like that's why it's the game we love to watch.
Favorite goal?
It must be Grunkvist I mentioned earlier, the defender. He actually did it twice. So I'm gonna probably confuse myself against which club he did the proper one. But he done it twice, where as a defender he got the ball around the mid circle, like probably even on our half, and just did a Maradona zigzag through past like 3 players and scored.
Nice.
And it's an insane goal. Like if you type in on YouTube Grunkvist goals Groningen, you get a top 3. All 3 of them are sick. And all 3 of them are probably my top 10 of goals I've seen in Groningen, especially keeping in mind that he was a defender. He, as a defender, once scored like 11 or 12 goals in a season.
Wow.
He was the one taking all the penalties that season, which was like 7 out of those. So it's a bit of a cheat. And he was like tall as a tree, so he had some headers at like corners and stuff. But still, like as a defender, he scored a lot for Groningen, and was really important.
You still got to put those penalties away, so it's not that much of a cheat.
He almost always did. I think he only missed 1 for the club, from what I can recall.
Yeah. I think it's a skill being a penalty taker, because it's not easy. You see, Harry Kane is somebody that takes a penalty really well, but I mean, even he misses the occasional one, so it's no easy feat, really.
It's also confidence, I think. Like Grunkvist was this really, like not overconfident, but like he was this really calm, confident guy. He was also for a long time the captain of the team, and always kept his calm. So I think that was he would just walk behind that ball and would almost always go in.
Speaking of centre backs that played really well, what's your thoughts? I mean, were you a fan of Groningen when Van Dijk played for you?
Definitely.
Yeah.
He is one high in that list. Like he wasn't in that top 5 earlier, even though I said like I like the defenders and stuff, because I think it was just slightly on the short side that he actually played for Groningen. Like especially his debut here was when he was super young. So for how young he was, he did amazingly well. And when he made the decision to go to Celtic from Groningen, like me and my friends, we all said like that's such a good move. Like he didn't. Some people skip that step, they go, they're young, and they go to too big of a club too soon.
Too soon, yeah.
And Celtic is like that middle mode within Europe that is perfect for a player like that. Like he was still like, maybe he was 20, 21 when he left here, I think, something like that, like young at least. And he made the decision to go to Celtic because it's sort of guaranteed you play European football. Obviously, the wages are going to be better than Groningen. And you can play yourself in the picture. And then he went to Southampton. That was obviously a huge success. And we all know where that ended.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it was amazing.
I'm sure you, as Groningen fans, will have a part to say that he was, you helped him become the greatest defender in the world.
Yeah. Well, we actually have like, I always think of it. It's funny, but there's been so many like world-class players that actually came through here, like Suarez, obviously, although like he left here on bad terms, and
Tadic
he's proven himself to. Yeah, Tadic, but like Suarez left here on sort of bad terms and can be an asshole, like when he was in his biting period and stuff. It's not one of my favorite players, but like obviously he became one of the biggest in the world for a good while, and Groningen is the club that got him out of South America to here to Europe to play. So that's obviously you have Van Dijk, you have the Koeman brothers. Robin, obviously. And many great players like that. But even players like Grankvist who end up playing in the Series A in Italy for a long time after they leave and do very well and became the captain of the Swedish international team for a couple of years. There's a lot of players who achieved really big things after their period with Groningen. We're only a small club. If you look at it on European perspective, it's fun to see, and especially when this whole COVID thing happened, and Robert came back to play because the club was in tough weather, and then I think even Suarez bought like 3 season tickets that they gave away to people who are in less fortunate situations. Koeman brothers did, and all these old players, like really big names, they all bought a couple season tickets, gave them to the club to give away. And that was really beautiful to see. And then that really sparked everyone's mind again. Like, oh yeah, all those players actually played for Groningen. Like Van Dijk, like Suarez, like Robben. This was before he came back, obviously, before he announced that. So it was really cool to see.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Just to sort of wrap things up, really, but what's your thoughts on Danny Buis? What do you kind of think to his style of management? What do you think to how things are going with him at the moment?
I'm normally always a bit it's so easy to criticize like the coach, right? It's the easiest person to criticize because everyone knows better. Like they put in a different player into the field, and you're going to say, why didn't he put a striker in? We're 1-1. Why not put a striker in?
Yeah.
But he sees them every day. He watches them train. Yeah. But the cool thing, and Groningen has done this quite often in the past, they attract people to the club that have a history with the club. Yeah. So it's not a nobody to us as supporters. When he was a player here, and I've actually seen him play still, like his last year here or last 2 years, when I already had a season ticket. He was always one of the supporters' favorites because he's not even from the city or anything, but he's just this hardworking guy who shows passion, who wasn't the best player ever, but he showed passion. He always tried his hardest. You saw the guy run until he couldn't. And he brings that same energy while coaching. You see, he always wants to try better. He wants to improve the team, and not because he's this elite coach knowing it better than everyone else. He's admitted mistakes in the past. He's said it when the team doesn't perform well, instead of hanging. Some coaches have this habit of always saying like, nah, but I see points where we can improve, but I've seen really high hopes for the next match. And sometimes that's bullshit. If it's a shit match, then tell us it's a shit match.
Yeah.
And I think he's the right kind of coach for Groningen, because he'll say when it wasn't enough. When the players didn't do what they should, he will not only tell it to the players, but he'll say it in front of the camera as well, which is a bit of honesty that I think is appreciated a lot here in Groningen.
There was nothing else at all in the whole world but football.